Hey everybody, Nashi here. So in today's video I'm going to be going over the Maehwa succession changes that happened on October 12th. So I'm a little late on this, so forgive me for that. But basically there's quite a few changes that happened for succession, so I'm going to focus on succession in this video because they're pretty impactful. But there was a few awakening changes, but overall they're minute and not really that serious to talk about. But these changes on Succession were pretty significant, and I'm pretty excited about these changes because overall, Suck has been a lot of fun since these changes. But there's definitely some issues that I will address towards the end part of the video. But yeah, let's go ahead and get in. Alright, so to quickly demonstrate some of the red blooming action here. You can use it from hotbar, and that'll actually let you use the iframe, just to show what that looks like. Goes into a backstep, and then which is an iframe, and then goes into the super armor part, which is the damage. Now, realistically, in most scenarios, you're not going to be able to get the iframe portion because of how the skill interacts with other skills, so the skill connection. For example, if you do Stigma into Blooming, you just go straight into the super armor. You completely skip the animation for the iframe, so in that kind of regard, it's going to be no iframe at all and just go straight into super armor, which is fine. And then same thing with Carver. You just go straight into the super armor after Carver, which again is fine. It's just the iframe, as I'm mostly just trying to point out here, is the iframe is relatively pointless and useless. It's not going to apply in any realistic combat scenario unless you're just like waiting for the opportunity and just trying to dodge a grab with that. But it's such a small window with lag and desync and whatnot. There's a high likelihood the iframe is just not going to produce any positive results for you. So I think the iframe is relatively pointless. But the other thing I wanted to demonstrate is like the reach of the skill on the sides is actually pretty good. So as you see, it's pretty good on the sides. And it's relatively the same from the front, but it's like the problem is most of our skills are cone based as just like a class in general, whether it's Succession kit or it's the Awakening kit. So I would have expected a little bit better reach, especially for chip damage point of view. But if you just do the natural way, using the hotbar, you obviously do a backstep and then into it, so you're not going to hit anything in front of you, which I think is kind of unfortunate. And then if I chase forward, not going to hit. And then I'll do a little bit closer so I can try to give a better representation of it. Just want to show like basically the reach of the skill is kind of like lacking. That's basically the farthest you can be from it. I don't know. It seems good when you look at it from here, but when you're in combat, you have like guardians that can fucking smack you from hella far, like right here. Hell, Maehwa Awakening can actually chip damage from here with like Frost Pillar, Tip of the Iceberg, Petal Bloom, Moonlight Dash. You know, there's so many different classes that have just better AoE damage options, and I feel like it's really close. Basically, the red blooming is focused around comboing and not really chip damage, which is I was hoping that they would make the reach a little bit better than that, but I am overall happy with the skill. I just wanted to have a little bit better reach, like maybe about right here. So that's a little bit too far, but about right here. If I could actually chip someone from this distance, that would actually feel a lot better. It just feels like you have to be like so up close and personal, which you're just gonna take a lot of damage in most neutral game fights. So from a neutral game point of view, neutral fight point of view, you're gonna have to be up close and personal to actually make use of the blooming. Like that's pretty much the reach. So overall, pretty good skill though. The new changes to Prime Charge Stub Arrow are actually extremely strong. It allows you to use Charge Stub Arrow constantly whenever you have an arrow, because it has no cooldown and it actually hits decently hard, so you can chunk your opponent's guard or their HP if they're using super armor skills. So it's good range pressure and definitely something you want to make use of. Grapple Arrow got a nice little change here where you get 4 guard when using it, and it's a 10-second cooldown. It costs 150 stam to use it, which has always been the case, but now with a 4 guard we have a pretty good engage skill. So it's actually not too bad. I like it a lot, especially because of the distance it travels. Distance is actually really good, and then it's really fast animation too, so definitely a good change. I really like it. Not much to say about this one, but our pre-awakened block now gives us a 20 DP buff, and it refreshes when you hold it or just pressing it, so that's really nice. The only thing to note is Red Moon will actually override it because it has a stronger version of the buff by being the same DP but 20 seconds instead of 10, so it will override it, and you cannot override the Red Moon one with the block one, so just bear that in mind. This change means that basically Red Moon, so Red Blade Red Moon, will actually be a lot more bursty because it has less overall hits, so it'll definitely feel a lot burstier. And on top of that, the guard gauge damage will actually be pretty significant, so utilizing range chip damage on someone's guard is actually a viable option now, so that should help out with some shield based classes or just weaker shield classes as well for pressuring. So yeah, good change. Alright, so to get into some of the issues I have with Succession Kit currently, basically it revolves around Red Blade State. I think Red Blade State needs to be kind of given a quality of life buff overall in a few different spots. Primarily, I think the 10-second duration is too short. I think they need to change that to a 15 or 20-second duration. I think they need to lower the cooldown of decapitation from 7 seconds to 5 seconds, at minimum for Prime, at least. Maybe not necessarily for Absolute. Honestly, Absolute isn't really used anymore, so I wouldn't care about that. Specifically for Prime decapitation, it needs to be 5 seconds, as well as that duration increase of Red Blade State. This means there would be less pressure on the player in order to maintain Red Blade State and not be in awkward scenarios where you have a couple seconds left, you finally get a CC on your opponent, and you don't have time to use decap in order to maintain Red Blade State, so you take the opportunity to engage as quickly as possible, but then you end up in a scenario where you do half the damage that you typically would because you exited out of Red Blade State due to the duration. And then so you have that aspect, as well as basically how you enter Red Blade State and exit Red Blade State. I think it's a little clunky. If they increase the duration, I don't necessarily mind the entering of Red Blade State as much. However, I do think using decap without any sort of protections is kind of bad, in my opinion. You can use Maehwa's Will to enter Red Blade State, but that also has its own issues, which I'll explain in a minute. But essentially, I think using decap to enter Red Blade State is kind of clunky. I like the idea, and it works great in PvE, but in PvP in practice, it's kind of clunky. My suggestion is if you lower the cooldown of decapitation to 5 seconds and then you increase the duration, maybe just make decapitation super armor naturally, remove the stun from it, which we don't even really use, honestly, anyways. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I use decapitation to stun my opponent in any sort of combo. It's just not something we do. So give it super armor normally and make it a 5-second cooldown, and I think that would be perfectly fine. And that would make it feel less clunky and bad to use to enter Red Blade State. Because you want to be in Red Blade State after the changes in October 12th. Like, Red Blade State is so good right now. So those 3 changes right there would be nice. Alternatively, what you could do is have a toggle button, kind of similar to how Tiger Blade is. You would just hit a button, and if you're at 2 petals, it would help you enter Red Blade State, and that's how you could enter Red Blade State utilizing that. That would feel a lot more smooth and less clunky, and that would be an option. Maybe have that as an alternative option while also allowing decap to still enter. That way PvE is unaffected. But that would be a very interesting idea. I know they tried to do that by utilizing Maehwa's Will, but Maehwa's Will for entering Red Blade State isn't as bad as it is with using Maehwa's Will in general while in Red Blade State. Because if you use Maehwa's Will in Red Blade State, it'll actually absorb it, which feels really bad. So I just enter Red Blade State and I use Maehwa's Will, now I'm out. Like, what if I get mana drained or WP drained immediately after I enter it from like a Ranger or a Mystic or a Suck Drake or Awaken Drake or Maehwa or Musa? Like, that's very possible to happen in a lot of different situations. So in practice, the Maehwa's Will is a good it's a good idea in theory and how it's set up, but the exiting aspect is just horrible. I think they should remove Maehwa's Will's ability to exit Red Blade State and give it to this toggle ability. So basically you would have a toggle ability with like a 5-second cooldown to enter Red Blade State, and then you can use it to exit Red Blade State whenever you so choose. You want to be in Red Blade State, no matter what you're doing. If it's PvE or PvP, you want to be in Red Blade State. So there's very few reasons why you would want to be not in Red Blade State at this point in time since the update on October 12th. So yeah, I think they really need to address those issues, and that would make the Red Blade feature as a whole feel less clunky. So yeah, a quick overview. Increase the duration from 10 seconds to either 15 or 20 seconds. Lower the cooldown of decapitation from 7 seconds to 5 seconds. Remove the stun from decapitation. Give it a super armor instead. Remove Maehwa's Will's ability to exit Red Blade State and give it to a new ability that can help you both enter Red Blade State and exit Red Blade State. And that would actually feel a lot better in my opinion. If anyone else has a different idea or a better idea, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Alright, so the other issues that I'd like to address beyond Red Blade State is one of our Rebam skills, Blooming Stub. Honestly, at this point, I really think they should just change how this skill works. It's a great disengage skill, kind of. Grapple Arrow just is so much better in comparison because of the animation speed as well as the distance traveled between Blooming Step and Grapple Arrow is just that much different. So if I'm, for example, over here with my foot up against, I can use Grapple Arrow and get all the way to my opponent rather quickly, and that's a really good strong foreguard engage. But if I do that same thing with Blooming Step, I'll barely reach, and it's a foreguard, so someone can, and the animation is really long, so someone can definitely get me in the back if they're actually actively paying attention. So it's like really bad to use nowadays, honestly, with how fast some classes are. What I would like to see done to this skill is to change it from a foreguard to a super armor. Remove all the offensive potential from it if you want. I personally don't care. Some people might prefer the offensive potential with the DP shred is what I mean. Because this damage is just complete garbage. It's basically non-existent damage. But The DP shred, I don't really necessarily care about that. I mean, you could keep that on there or not. Honestly, I just want it to be a super armor at this point instead of a 4 guard. And then increase the animation speed to be a lot shorter. And then also, buff the distance. I just don't think... If my Grapple Arrow can go this far, which is really good and feels really good, why isn't my Blooming Step having that same kind of, like, animation speed as well as distance that it can travel? It just feels bad. Like, I don't even want to use this skill. In most cases, I actually just opt for Blooming Stride because the slow is at least worthwhile using. So, I don't know. They need to really redo this skill, make it super armor, and increase its animation speed to shorten it, as well as the travel distance. I think that would be a good adjustment for this. Alright, another issue is one that I find pretty funny. We've been asking for an iframe for years, and you give it to us in the form of this this red blooming. You give us invincible while moving backwards, but it's like it's so short, and on top of that, it doesn't even happen with most of the, I guess, accelerator or cancels you can use. It's just pointless. Why even bother putting it in? It's such a fucking joke. Like, the only way to really see it come about is if you hotbar it, or you use it after Whirlwind Cut, or I think there's a couple other scenarios, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But it's just pointless and not really worth using. Like, it's so short. That iframe time period is just garbage. It's a joke. Like, what is that? That's just trash. Now, the super armor, on the other hand, and the damage it does is really good. So, like, it's mixed feelings about it. Overall, I'm really happy with the new red blooming. I just think that iframe is a joke. Like, why is it even in there? It's pointless to be in there. And then on top of that, it's kind of just like, I don't know. It's like PA mocking us. We've been asking for an iframe, and they give us this useless iframe that doesn't even exist. I just don't get it. I don't understand why they won't give Succession a useful iframe. Like, the only one we have is the Charged Evasive Shot. Right here. And at least that actually works properly now. But it's still, like, it's not really that impressive. It's an 8-second cooldown. It's based off our arrows, which have a finite amount, 4 arrows, except when it bugs. But it's it's not going to always be available. You need to have an on-demand iframe. I just don't think that this is the answer to what we need, because clearly we haven't really been able to utilize it very well in all PvP scenarios, whether you're in Awakening or Succession. So stop dorking around and give us a damn iframe, a proper iframe. In Succession, it should be Stigma backward movement. I think, well, Frost Feint, whatever the hell they wanted to rename this skill to, I think instead of the super armor, the backward move, it should be iframe. That would help out with the stutter issues that it gets whenever you get hit in the super armor, which makes it end shortly, which makes it end abruptly, and then you get caught by the stab, which is unprotected. And then it would also help out with giving us an option that's an iframe every 4 seconds. And it costs stamina, or it actually costs WP, but you could change it to stamina if you want, I guess. I don't know. We have stamina problems and sucks, so maybe leave it as WP, but it's a 4-second iframe. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't see that being an issue. But I don't know. Like, I really think you guys should, and you guys, I mean PA, you should stop dicking around and stop giving us these joke iframes and make Frost Feint an actual iframe for Succession. For Awakening, I think it should be Sleet Step. It makes perfect fucking sense. Lower the cooldown to 4 seconds, and then make it Sleet Step as an iframe instead of super armor. I think that would be perfectly fine. It would make perfect sense. It would be great bait tool for Awakening. You use Red Moon and then you Sleet Step to bait out a grab. You know, like that would be really good. And then with Succession having the Stigma there, that would be perfectly fine. So I really wish you guys would stop dicking around and actually like do what this class needs, honestly. But yeah, there's my piece on that one.